Hey, I'm Angelo Pinto, and welcome to Let It Rip. We're coming to you from the shadow of the Empire State Building in New York City. We're talking about a crime that doesn't just steal property, it steals legacy, generational wealth, and entire communities, deed theft. In a city where black and brown families fought for decades just to own a piece of the block, predators are circling like vultures, targeting seniors, immigrants, working class homeowners, forging signatures, manipulating paperwork, and walking away with homes worth millions. And let's be clear, this isn't just fraud, this is economic violence. This is modern-day displacement dressed up in legal documents and courthouse filings. As previously reported right here on Let It Rip, New York City Council member Chiose was violently thrown to the ground and arrested during a protest trying to stop the removal of a black homeowner in his district. Today, that very constituent joins us to tell their story firsthand. Because this issue is bigger than paperwork, bigger than housing court, this is about power, greed, and who gets protected in the city. And just days after this explosive arrest, Mayor Zoran Mandani announced a new deed theft prevention agency. Joining us is the Stop Deed Theft Coalition, Evangeline Byar, Carmella Charrington, and Omar Hardy. I'm Angelo Pinto, and this is Let It Rip. So, Ms. Charrington, we're going to start with you. You, of course, have been a victim of deed theft, and most recently you've been incarcerated for attempting to protect yourself and others who are experiencing deed theft. Take us through a little bit of that experience, and also tell us how it feels to be incarcerated when you're trying to protect folks from those who are doing criminal activity.
Well, yes, I was recently incarcerated at Rikers Island, the women's department. It was due, they had a habeas corpus against me, which is I was protecting my father. They wanted me to produce my father to court. And so we were looking for legal representation to help with this case that we had in front of us. And so when we went to court, we gave, all the documents and let them know that my father could not appear on that day. And when we went to court, the Judge Rachel Fryer, she didn't want to hear none of the defense that I was bringing in front of her. And at the end of it, she sent me from court straight to Rikers Island because I did not produce my father in court. And so my father is the owner at the time of the property, and we were saying that his conservator, which is in the state of Georgia, is the one that signed off on the property, and she had no legal standing to do that because the property is in New York. She didn't go through the necessary steps that you need to sell a property in the state of New York. So they were trying to get my father back to really cover up what they have done, because it was the courts that basically did the deed theft to my father. So I was in Rikers Island. As soon as I got out, the next day, they came to administrate the eviction. And that's when Chiose was present. Tell us a little bit about your experience on Rikers, right? You were arrested. Tell us what that was like, how difficult or challenging that was. I knew as a little kid about Rikers Island and tried not to ever get in trouble, and that's what I try to do in my life. And when I went, I really wanted everyone to, really honestly and truly, at the end of the day, I wanted everyone to see what they're seeing now, right? This is what I wanted, because we've been harping about it, we've been talking about it, we were telling every agency that we're not getting any justice in the courts, in anything. So when it happened to me, it's an inhumane situation. You have no control, you're in a cage, you're tossed from here to there. They didn't even know what to do with me because I was in civil contempt. So they really didn't understand it. They had to keep me away from population. I was isolated by myself. They fed me, 3 meals a day, but it was an inhumane situation. You have cameras in the room. The COs, they look at you like, you shouldn't be in here, you cause any problems, you're in here. There's nothing that we could do about it. Even medically, I had to keep harping about making sure I got my medication and being checked. So, it's just an inhumane situation. And Omar, you were also arrested as a result of your participation in kind of confronting deed theft. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Absolutely. Both Carmella and myself unlawfully arrested, and like Carmella is saying, it's very dehumanizing. When you're going to fight for your property, fight for your inheritance, fight for your generational wealth, and then you're being ignored and essentially attacked by these different agencies that's supposed to protect us as a people, it's disgusting. You know what I mean? It puts you in a place of like, you know, dang, like who do I turn to? What am I supposed to do? You know, we put in so much good work within the community for our families, and then to be unlawfully put in handcuffs, taken off the streets against your will, you know what I mean? It's really indescribable, you know?
And Evangeline, I want to turn to you a little bit. So it appears that there's like this racial tension amongst deed theft. It appears that black folks are the ones being targeted most often. Is there some racial tension on the ground in Brooklyn around kind of this, what's happening around deed theft?
No, it actually has brought us together. We find that the community has showed up in ways that we did not, that we didn't think, because what has happened is politically on the ground, we are told, oh, the gentrifiers are here, you're not going to be here too much longer. However, in this battle, the gentrifiers are on the front lines with us. They went down with Chiosei when he was being thrown to the ground and busted in the head, they were too. And so it actually has brought us together as a community. It has us having conversations, hard conversations about the race relations, the fact that they're trying to divide us according to their political agendas, and that we have to, as a people, push back against that and make sure that we stand together on these issues. Because a lot of what we're seeing happening with these outrageous prices in the housing market is because the predators, the deed thieves, are the ones who are your landlord now, right? They're the ones that's charging you $5,000 a month rent, you know, and so we have sort of unified around the issue.
That's great. Now, one of the other pieces is the deed theft issue is becoming such a huge issue, but how large of an issue is? How many people have experienced deed theft? How vast is this?
It's very large.
Yes.
You know, by the tens of thousands of people are being unlawfully displaced, whether that's deed theft, whether that's being unlawfully evicted. You know, taking it personal real quick. You know, for me, like I've been dealing with this situation for over 20 years, right? I'm the heir apparent of Judge John L. Phillips, right? A very well-known figure within Brooklyn. You know, him and my father, they were great friends and business partners. And if anybody's familiar with the Slave Theater or the Black Lady Theater, right? What happened to Mr. Phillips in these properties, it really set a precedent and created a blueprint for what we see now, right? And essentially it was a political hit, you know? We've been to all of the different
Who do you think was behind this? Do you have a sense of what the political kind of impetus or force kind of pushing this was?
Well, you know, when Mr. Phillips made the run for district attorney, you know, it started there. You know, at the time, Charles Hines was the sit-in district attorney. And, you know, that's a powerful position, right? So it goes from these different agencies, district attorney's office, attorney general's office, to greedy developers, unlawful developers coming in to take our properties.
So it's interesting that, of course, these political attacks, we talk about the financial impact of folks taking land and property, but also the cultural impact. Like there's a huge impact on the cultural integrity of the community, who we are. And of course, there's a history of this when you look at Seneca Village, you look at San Juan Hill, and even a case for reparations around this. And a few of you both are now running for district leader. Yes. Tell us how that fits in, why that's important in this particular moment.
It's right on time. It fits in because we firsthand know what it's like going into the courts and not getting justice at all. Every aspect, from housing to Supreme Court, even to the appellate court. I mean, every last one of them, we were not getting any justice. So now we will be part of that, picking the judges and making sure we have judges that are vetting into the community. So it's very important.
Yeah, very important, very imperative. we're running for state committee district leader, and that role is vital for getting judges into the seat, right? And right now, it's like a pay-to-play system, right? Judges, they aren't being vetted by the community at all, right? You'll hear some of the people say like, oh, you know, we bring them to the community, you know, we have a forum, right? But a forum and community impact testimony is totally different, right? The judges need to hear from the people. They don't need to just come sit in front of the people and, you know, just be a figure there, right? We've been to these forums. We wanted to pose questions. Our questions did not get answered, right? So this is something that, you know, we, you know, opt to change. You know, let the judges hear the issues that's affecting the community. One thing real quick. This judge on Carmella's case, right, Rachel Fryer, she said on the bench that deed theft is not an issue within this case. For a judge to say that, especially in this particular case,
it says something.
It says something.
And there's this kind of political lack of action, right, and potentially complicity, and actually maybe participating in some ways in what's happening in deed theft. But the mayor has recently created this new agency to respond to, I think, the visibility that you all have created around this issue. How effective do you think this is? Do you think it's a good first step when you look at the political landscape of the folks who've done essentially nothing?
So I do think it's a big first step. One is we met him on the campaign trail. He kept his promise. He has now instituted the Office of Deed Theft. And we were trying to figure out ultimately why was the funding so low?
For this office?
For the office. However, he has promised to give $10 million to the initiative. Started out with $500,000 after June 30th, another $1 million. But I believe that has happened because we are building it out.
Gotcha.
Right? And so we need to cost out what does this office need to actually run. Currently, it's our coalition and the mayor's team working on building this out. So right now, what we've been focusing on is ACRIS. ACRIS is the city register. It's where you register the deed. What has to happen and what they are working on now is to make it to where you no longer have to wait 30 days to be alerted if the deed is changed, right? Flagging the cases that are already in the system that they are aware of, and then looking to see where they can clean it up and sort of check the system. Remember, we're coming from Bloomberg, de Blasio,
right,
and
so
Adams.
Administrations that didn't really do much.
These administrations that did nothing.
Right.
Not even not do much, but they have allowed, they set the tone
for this to
happen.
And to flourish under their administration. Omar, your thoughts on this piece, the political component, do you think we're moving forward in a better direction? What else needs to be done?
I definitely think that we're moving forward in the right direction. I think that, you know, we need to continue to unify as a people. You know what I mean? It's our work that are getting the needle moving forward. You know what I mean? So, you know, I think that as a people, you know, it's a lot of unlearning and relearning that needs to be done. You know, really don't depend so much on these political figures. It's up to us. You know, essentially they work for us. If we're not setting the demand, it's nothing gonna happen.
Great conversation, and as always, we'll stay on top of this issue. I'd like to thank my guests for the awesome conversation. Let's take a short break, and I'm Angelo Pinto, and this is Let It Rip. Welcome back to Let It Rip. Newark's public safety debate takes center stage. Is the city truly becoming safer, or are deeper issues around policing, violence prevention, and community trust still being ignored? We break down the numbers, the politics, and what residents are really experiencing on the ground. Joining us is the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety for Newark, LaKeesha Eure. How you doing, LaKeesha?
I'm good, Mr. Pinto. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. First, you spent a few years now as being the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety. Tell us a little bit about that how Newark has innovated around the OVPTR, the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery. For folks who don't know, share a little bit about that.
So yes, I have been the deputy mayor now. This is year 3. But prior to that, I was the director for the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, where we created that office in the wake of George Floyd in 2020, when the whole country was rallying around defunding of the police. The mayor signed the executive order to create this office. And essentially, this office was supposed to be a public safety extension, right, alongside public safety, because we understood that we cannot arrest our way out of our issues. We understood that the country was in an uproar over public safety, over police brutality, and there was no recourse for community and for people. And so we reallocated 5% of the police department's budget to create our Office of Violence Prevention. And essentially, we hired social workers to be in every police department throughout our city. So we have 9 precincts. So we put social workers in each of the precincts to be able to help law enforcement to do their jobs, because we understood they couldn't be the caseworker, the person for homelessness, the person for food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. And so we understood that a lot of our issues were quality of life issues, not necessarily criminal issues. And so we needed to create something to be able to work alongside policing. And
so reimagining public safety.
We reimagining public safety.
And you yourself have a background in trauma support and those kinds of things. Tell us how the reimagining happened. How much money was it, too, that went into these new offerings, and how effective has it been?
So in 2014, Mayor Baraka became the mayor. And prior to that, we were already reimagining. We were reimagining for probably 4 or 5 years, 10 years, even before that, when Newark had around 110, 112 homicides a year taking place, and people were just going business as usual. And so there was no outrage. And so we began to create a community response to how we do violence prevention before there was funding, before there was anything called public safety, if you will. We had a police department before any of those things. And so it was a community response to being fed up with the violence that was taking place. And so we began to rally in the streets. We took an organizing approach, an activism approach, because it was the people who were being affected. It wasn't a law enforcement issue. So for 155 weeks in a row, rain, sleet, snow, we blocked traffic, and we went to every neighborhood where violence was taking place. And we told the people that violence will not be tolerated here, and if so, we're going to do something about it. And so it began, during that time, the police didn't have trust with community. And so someone else, we had to be the trust for ourselves. And so that's the groundwork in terms of how we began our violence prevention, how we reimagine public safety, and how we become the public safety. And so when Mayor Baraka got into office, we began to do violence from a public health approach. But that came from our activism. We were already rallying around employment and jobs and education, and for our Bloods and Crips to put their guns down, and for us to have an active voice in public safety.
So not only the Office of Violence Prevention, Trauma Recovery, this reimagining of public safety, but it was really the community that reimagined public safety, and now was pressing politicians and government to follow their lead in creating something new. And then you become the individual who's shepherding all of these things, right? How much money was allocated by Newark for OVPTR?
So 5% of the police department's budget during that time was $11.5 million. And so the executive order says that we get the 5% in perpetuity. And so when their budget increases, then our budget increases.
So innovation even around the funding structure.
Right.
And now there's this new department or agency around constitutional affairs. Tell us a little bit about this and its connection to your work as the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety.
So while we are building all of this work around violence prevention, community safety, reimagining public safety, the city of Newark was under a federal consent decree. And this is what pushed us to be able to say we have to do something different. And so we begin to rewrite the policies, and we begin to look at the policies and make recommendations to the police department around what should happen around supervision of law enforcement, around the body cameras, around how they write their reports, around how they engage with community, especially those special populations, the LGBTQ, people with mental health issues. How do we do that differently? And you're not trained to do it, so how do we bring in another entity that is? And that's how we begin to do it. And so being under the consent decree, we had to change policies. We had to have community meetings and listen to community issues, because internal affairs wasn't enough, right? So the community needed to have something else. And so we get here because we were under the consent decree for the last 10 years.
And for folks who don't know what a consent decree, share a little bit about that.
So the consent decree, we had a federal monitor come in to take a look at our policing practices, to take a look at if we were doing our work with integrity, if we were following the Attorney General's orders and what we're supposed to be doing as far as the state rules. And they begin to audit and take a closer look at the building spaces police were working out of, the equipment, the cars, all of the things. And so they begin to make recommendations for how to make the police department better without coming to take it over. And so we had been under monitoring for 10 years. And so now early last year, the end of last year, the courts decided that we didn't need to be under federal monitoring anymore. And so the mayor created this Office of Constitutional Affairs, which says that we still need to have some oversight. We still need to have some community voice. There still needs to be some oversight. We don't want to keep spending money. We were spending probably like almost $20 million around federal monitoring.
Wow.
And that money could be used for something else. That money can be used for community things. I think it can be used for something else. And so our petition or our voice to get taken off of the consent decree needed another layer.
That's good.
We had a civilian complaint review board. And the Civilian Complaint Review Board, we were fighting for years to get some subpoena power, and we went all the way up to the Supreme Court and still lost. And so we were really serious about fighting for subpoena power with our Civilian Complaint Review Board and having oversight. So with a review board, and now we have this Constitutional Affairs Office, there was still some outstanding things that the police department had not finished as a part of the federal monitoring. So this new office is going to make sure that we check those boxes, that they complete what the federal monitor said they still needed some oversight in, that we begin to build community. So we have the NAACP, the ACLU, Ironbound Community Corporation, Newark for Accountable Policing, People's Organization for Progress, the CCRB. So here we have about 9 organizations and people that's going to be involved in this oversight to be able to make recommendations to the police department as to how we begin to continue to write better policies for policing for the city of Newark. So
2 things. One, share with folks the numbers around how Newark has kind of transformed public safety, because you said that for many years, about 111, 117 murders a year. Tell folks about where you are now, and also how innovative you think this new agency is in expanding kind of the perspective and work around public safety.
So the work around public safety, like I said, I've been working with the city for 10 years. And prior to that, I was a part of the activism work probably 10 years before that. And so when other people are trying to do this work and replicate it, they have to know that you can't just helicopter in, right? That it took a lot of groundwork, it took a lot of organizing, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it took leadership.
Do you feel like Newark is the most innovative city when it comes to this work?
I want to say yes. I believe that we had, California who've been doing this work for a long time. They've had probably more investment, but I would say Newark has been innovative and creative because we have leadership that's innovative and creative and that was willing to take risks that other people are not willing to take. Many other cities are not willing to move 5% of the police department's budget to create an Office of Violence Prevention. Many of them are not able to do executive orders and ordinances to say, for every 10 police officers that go into the police department, you get to hire 1 social worker on their budget. And so the first year we did that, they put 100 officers in. I got 10 spots. And so that helps us to be able to, it has to be a ratio.
Create some balance.
Create balance
Yes.
and some equity.
Yes.
Because we understand that they are first responders and we are too.
Yes.
Our social workers, our outreach workers, our victim advocates, our
Critically
credible
important
messengers.
in transforming this public safety piece. Last question. Last week we had Renita Francois, the new deputy mayor
Yes.
for community safety in New York City, on what does it mean to have 2 black women leading public and community safety at 2 large cities mean today?
It's tremendous, right? Women have always been at the forefront of a lot of this work that needs nurturing and standing up and organizing and all of the things. But for the most part, you see the men in the forefront for leadership. For ours, our mayor is a man, our business administrator, our corporate counsel, our chief of staff, like all of those, positions. And so when you have women at the forefront, it says that they value us, right? Our mayor always say, if you want something done, you can hire somebody, but if you want it done right, then you go get a woman to do it, right?
And they went and got that.
And they went and got that.
In the city of Newark and in the city of New York City, who are changing not just the city's approach to these issues, but the nation's approach. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, Deputy Mayor. A needed and powerful conversation as cities and states across the country deal with reimagining public safety. As always, we'll stay on top of these issues. Let's take a short break. I'm Angelo Pinto, and this is Let It Rip. Not surprisingly, Donald J. Trump wants compensation for January 6th insurrectionists, people who stormed the Capitol, attacked police officers, and tried to overturn an election are now being treated like victims worthy of government payback, while descendants of American chattel slavery have been told to get over it. But New York City knows better, or at least it should. Slavery built this city. Wall Street profited from it. Banks, ports, real estate, and political power in New York City were all touched by stolen black labor. The damage didn't end in 1865. It became redlining, segregated schools, over-policing, wealth gaps, and generational displacement that still define black life in this city today. That's why local laws 91 and 92 matter. Reparations in New York City are not some fantasy or political buzzword. They are a legitimate response to a documented historical crime with living consequences. And if Mayor Mamdani and the New York City Council are serious, they must fully fund the New York City Commission on Racial Equity's mandate on reparations. New York City's Commission on Racial Equity, independent agency, must be supported with these efforts. This cannot be optional. No more symbolic panels, no more empty speeches. Fund the work, address the harm, build actual repair. Because if America can find sympathy for insurrectionists, it can damn sure find justice for real reparations due to black folks in the city, state, and country. I'm Angelo Pinto, and this is Let It Rip.